Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start the meeting. This meeting is being recorded. It is 6:02 p.m. on Friday, April 25th, 2025. This is a meeting of the Cotuit Fire District Prudential Committee by Zoom only. The purpose for today's call is to hear a presentation from Icon Architecture relating to the Cotuit School. Before we begin, I would ask, as we usually do, if all those able could stand and pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, I'd like to take the roll. This is Mark Lynch. If Fran and Seth are on, if you could unmute yourselves.
I'm present.
That was Fran, or I'm sorry, that was Seth.
Yes, that was me.
Thank you.
Hi, Mark.
And that was Fran. Okay, thank you. So let's get started. I am going to, I hope very briefly, kind of describe how we got here before I turn it over to Icon, because some of you may not have been following this like particularly closely. So May 4th, 2024, there was a special district meeting with two articles on the agenda. One was to demolish the Cotuit School building and return it to nature. That received 59% of the vote, but not the required 67% needed for borrowing purposes. So that did not pass. The second article sought additional study on the school building, particularly to determine the cost to renovate it partially or completely for recreational purposes or a community center, or to demolish it. That passed by 51% of the vote. So the Prudential Committee set out to fulfill that request, or order, I should say. So in July, we interviewed and hired a procurement expert by the name of Janelle Martinez to help us guide us through the process, which is sometimes confusing and difficult relating to municipal purchasing. Ms. Martinez suggested to us that we use the process called request for proposal, where you put a proposal on the various state websites. It's publicized in a number of ways, and vendors are allowed to submit sealed bids in response to your request for work. Also in July, we formed a school ad hoc subcommittee. Anyone who wanted to be on the committee was on it, and we had a good group. Carol Zace, Patty Daly, Jamie Jackson, Pat Entell, Stephen O'Connor, John Havel, and myself. And we met 6 times over the course of July and August. And our purpose was to put together the language of the request for proposal, specifically laying out in some detail the various scenarios we wanted cost out, and the various details relating to those scenarios. So that detailed request for proposal was approved by the Prudential Committee in October 24. Vendors had a month to respond to the request for proposal, but unfortunately only one did. And that was a very small 2-person husband and wife architectural firm who had no experience in the areas that we needed. And the Prudential Committee, along with Ms. Martinez and along with 2 advisory voters from the ad hoc committee, all concluded that that bid did not meet our criteria and should be rejected, which left us in the position of starting the process over again. And this was in December of 2024. Mrs. Martinez recommended to us that we could also undertake another process called a request for quote. And what the Prudential Committee did at this time, we determined from interviews with a number of entities that had not bid that they're of the view that our initial request was very, very detailed, perhaps too detailed, required too many subcontractors, and was not appealing for them to bid on. So what we did was pared down the language to include in a request for quote, which is another process by which you can secure services, municipal services, to very closely track the language of Article 2 from the special district meeting. And you'll see that language here in a moment when we get to the presentation. Request for quote allows you to go out to trusted vendors with a specific detailed request and see if they are interested in bidding on that. It is a process that is recognized under municipal law. And we went out to Habib and Company, which is the architectural firm you may recall from last year that did the original rehab study on the Cotuit property. We went to Catalyst Architects, which, as you probably know, is the entity that's working on the fire department renovations. And we went to a company called Ty and Bond, which does work with our water department and which frequently collaborates with Icon Architecture. Icon submitted a bid that we were very happy with, in that, as you will see, they have substantial experience in this exact area, which is rehabbing mothballed school properties. Their bid was for $122,000 to perform the work, and they were able to do it on a fairly shortened timeline, given the process that I just described. So the Prudential Committee entered into a contract with them, and they have finished their report and are presenting it this evening. That is the background, which I thought might be important for you all to understand kind of the complexity of the process. And with that, I will turn it over to Paul and Mark from Icon. There will be a substantial time for Q&A after their presentation, and I expect there will be plenty. So with that, Paul and Mark, go ahead.
Okay. So who are we and why are we here? I am Mark McKevitz. I'm a project manager with Icon Architecture, and Paul DiGiandomenico is our senior project manager. We work in the institutional studio in our firm, which is a 50-person firm in downtown Boston. We do a lot of municipal work, both town halls, community centers, and senior centers. And we have a lot of experience with renovation and adaptive reuse across our firm. This is, yeah, go ahead, Paul. No, go right
sorry. I'm Paul DiGiandomenico, Senior Project Manager with Icon. As Mark mentioned, we responded to the RFQ back in January and for the study to potential reuse for community or recreational use. And we also were asked to study the cost of demolition of the school building and restoration of the site.
This, by the way, just to be clear, is the exact language from the Article 2 from the special district meeting.
Yep. So some of our further background is we have done a lot of different conceptual level studies. This was for a client that wanted us to do building programming and site layout, but no more. And
Peter?
it was...
I'm on, but I can't hear anything
simply,
because of however you have this speaker. I'm on, but I can't hear anything.
There we go. So this study looked at simply determining the space needs for the community center, the senior center, and their shared spaces and how it lays out on the site. We've also done studies based on monetary thresholds for other towns. This is for the Lincoln Community Center, which is scheduled to go under construction very, very soon. And we did a series of studies for them based on their dollar input. This is some of the graphics. They wanted something more specific, something much more realistic that they could sell to the community, whereas the other client was concerned about going too far with design, that the community wanted to have an input. And then I would say that the one of our more recent projects that is very similar to yours in terms of how it's moving is that we are working with another town on their town hall and working through multiple options and pricing those options to help determine a direction for the town to go. And we will be working with this town through town meeting.
Hello.
So these are some of our background projects, and some being more similar than others. Paul is going to talk to you all about the existing conditions at the existing Cotuit Elementary.
Ty and Bond visited the site back in early March of this year, and the team assessed the existing architectural, structural, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and site conditions. The existing structural foundations, the masonry walls and the framing are all still functional and in fairly good condition. The exterior envelope systems, such as the roofing, the masonry, the walls and doors, are in need of some repair and some replacements in some cases. The asphalt shingle roofing is very dated and worn. As I mentioned, the masonry around the building is in fair condition, but does need a bit of repair work on about 10 or 15% of the facade area. The windows and doors are functional, but would want to be replaced as part of any large construction project in order to meet the current energy codes. And on the photos on the bottom of the modular classroom structures are show that those pieces of the building are in very poor condition inside and out and do not meet current codes, and would recommend demolishing those under any development scenario. The interior finishes are dated and worn and well past their useful life. The flooring materials throughout contain asbestos materials and would have to be abated under any of the development scenarios that we're going to talk about. The mechanical, electrical, plumbing systems are somewhat antiquated and in most cases past their useful life as well. Additionally, this building does not have a fire protection system, a sprinkler system, which would have to be added if this building were to be reused. And some of the site conditions observed include the paved areas, which you can see are in very poor condition and lack proper drainage. We also observed poor drainage along the east side of the building, where ponded water can be seen and is collected fairly close to the building. Drainage issues would have to be addressed under any scenario, any construction scenario, in order to meet the requirements of the Town of Barnstable stormwater management rules and regulations.
So those are some of the existing conditions on the site. And now we're going to go through the options. We were asked to develop 3 options, one which was a demo and return to nature. One option was a community center, and another option had a recreation focus. And so I'm going to walk you through those. For the first option, it is more of a site-based project, and you can see the outline of the existing building that would be removed. The area would potentially have new walking paths and a small 6 or 8 car parking area off of Old Oyster Road. The large field in the middle of this would be planted with native grasses and meadow plants, and that would be the extent of work for this. For option 2, we looked at the community center, and we looked at removing a bit of the building, and we looked at providing a new parking area in the front of the building off of Old Oyster Road. There is a porte cochere entry from the main parking area. There is also a loading area to the north. There is, again, more seeded and, or not seeded, sorry, native grass and meadow plantings around the site. And this is more of a bifurcated or split design. So up close, this is looking at providing a senior center and a community center with, again, that porte cochere entry on the south side going into a vestibule, which leads you to 2 options, one being the senior center, one being the community center. The senior center has some offices for Council on Aging staff, a game room that would provide space for a pool table and some card tables, a small library, a couple of subdividable program rooms, and a multi-purpose room, dining room that would house dining for about 40 to 45 people. The community center is more focused on the retaining the multi-purpose room that exists, and you'll see that dashed line in there shows it could fit a pickleball court in there. And then there's an office and a couple of program rooms, one being a teen focused room and one being a program room that could have high bay or high ceilings for ping pong and or pool or other indoor games like that. Our third option was a recreational use, and this is focused on providing some more outdoor site amenities. We have provided, again, entrance from Old Oyster Road to a retaining the main entrance from the south. We have removed about 40 to 45% of the building and retained and brought in the site amenities that you're seeing, which are 4 pickleball courts and a outdoor high school sized basketball court. And then the building itself has been shrunk. And so as you can see here, this is a much more straightforward. There's 2 program rooms with a couple of offices. And what you're seeing in the northwest corner is basically a gym addition for a high school sized basketball court. The existing court, the existing multi-purpose room or basketball court is 38 feet wide. And the standard for high school is 50 feet plus you need to give 5 or 6 feet around the perimeter for people running out of bounds and for structure, etc. So you need about 60 to 62 feet across, and you all have, and the existing building is 38. So there are some challenges with that, and that is why we are proposing this gymnasium as part of it. And then you can see here, there's an alternate layout for the pickleball courts and a basketball court at the exterior. And you can see here on the right is a high school grade gym, and on the left is the existing conditions of the elementary gym. And you can see that one of the other challenges of this space for adult use is the structure is very low and the gabled roof slopes to the edges. And so you end up with a very low ceiling height. It's recommended that the bottom of structure be at about 16 to 18 feet above the court. And in this case, we have about 13 feet to the eave. And for the structure, it's actually a little bit lower. So it's a challenging space for basketball if that is desired. It's a little and the width of it is further challenges that space. And I am now going to go on to costs. So just a quick background, the 2023 study that Mark had referenced in his opening, it provided 3 phases that they basically broke down as deferred maintenance. So when we refer to deferred maintenance, we are not talking about reconfiguring space. We're not talking about changing the design elements of anything. We're simply saying to bring this building up to its former function in its current condition. So we escalated that to today's dollars, and that is $6.6 million. And that doesn't get you any change to the building. It simply functions again as a school. So the other thing on this background, and this will become important for the next slide, is the CAMUS value, or the assessor value of the existing building and site, which is at $3.9 million. And so the reason we bring that up is because I'm going to talk about a couple of the cost drivers that go into what drives the requirements for a building. So the first requirement I'm going to talk about is the accessibility requirement. And this is handled under the Massachusetts Architectural Access Board. And so this is a requirement that is based on cost. And so if you have a project that is under $100,000, you must do your best to meet the current regulations. So if you are moving a door, it would be great if you could give it the appropriate clearances. The next step up is when you do work that is over $100,000, but less than 30% of the value of the building. And as part of that, you need to not only do your best to work to current regulations within the site, within your limit of work area, you need to provide an accessible toilet room, you need to provide an accessible building entry and route, and you need to provide an accessible drinking fountain, and if you have them, a payphone. And so that is, again, at $100,000 or 30% of the value of the building. if you go over $100,000 and over 30% of the value of the building, you have to upgrade the entire building to meet the architectural access board requirements. And so what we find in buildings of this era is it gets a little it gets expensive quite quickly because a lot of the rooms, specifically the bathrooms, were built with CMU walls, and they do not have the dimension clearances that are required. So they can't be retained as is, and they need to be demolished and rebuilt. They don't have to be rebuilt with CMU, but that's one of the big things. The other issue is that any site work has to provide accessible paths, and all the door clearances and general clearances that are required have to be met for uh, a project. And so that's our first cost driver. Our second is a series of building code thresholds. And so I think Paul spoke about it previously about the energy code that has had a major upgrade in the last year or so. And so for new buildings and additions to existing buildings, you have to meet the existing code. And whether your town has stretched or specialized code has to meet that as well. With the existing buildings, it's a little more lenient in that the altered envelope, areas of the altered building exterior have to meet current code, which means things like if you're putting in new windows, those windows have to meet the current code. If you're cutting into a wall, what you put back has to meet the current energy code. So that's one of these thresholds. The next is systems such as HVAC, electrical, and plumbing. And those are, any new work needs to meet the current codes. And if you are doing a repair within a system that already exists, that new work has to meet the code, but the surrounding work does not necessarily have to meet the code. And then last is the building code, and that is all new construction does need to meet current codes. So for the building code, there are levels of alteration, and they're based on reconfiguration of space and cost. And so there's level 1, level 2, and level 3. Anything that is any of the previous projects that we showed would meet a level 3 alteration. And that would require structural upgrades such as hurricane ties, and a fire protection system has to be included. So all of the roof structure has to be tied down to the existing structure, to other shear walls, etc. It is an added cost that is significant. So these are additional costs based on the code. And the last slide that I'm going to talk about is phasing. And so phasing is something that a lot of municipalities bring up, and it is a more expensive path than doing everything at once. The big challenge is that you have to engage the design bid process multiple times. So if you do a certain chunk of a building renovation, and then you come back and you want to do another chunk of it, you have to go through the whole RFP process again. You have to hire another architect. You have to go through the bid process again. During that time, the cost of labor and materials is going up. And so you have to deal with escalation of costs overall. And then last but not least is it just adds complexity to the project, which adds cost as well. So the other, functionally, you end up with a building that is under construction quite often, that you have people and programs moving around the building to be out of phasing's way. And then you can't, the way that public bidding works, you can't control the contractor you're going to get. So you may get different quality, different systems, etc., based on who is hired. So these are, phasing seems like a good idea, but there are costs to it, and there are functional and dollar costs. So now I'm going to talk about the costs by option. I'm going to provide a brief summary of the option, and then I'm going to talk about the costs. So the first option was demolition, and that includes hazmat remediation, which is required for any demolition. You're going to have to go in, as Paul talked about, the asbestos tile that has to come out prior to demolition. There are other asbestos containing materials in the building. And then demolition of the existing building and the parking area, and then the new parking area, walking paths, and native grass and meadow plantings. So for that option, we have a construction cost estimate of $1.48 million. And so we're showing here construction costs and total project costs. The construction cost is just that. It's the hiring of a contractor and all of the work that they do. The total project cost includes soft costs, and those are things like hiring an architect. If you have a new project, it would be the fixtures, FF&E, furniture, fixtures, and equipment. It's also things like new IT, if you're going to have that. So as a typical multiplier, we use 30% of the construction cost to get to a total project cost. For this option, we kept it at 25% because we don't have a lot of extras, a lot of extra soft costs. So for option 2, for the community center, the scope is, again, demoing the modular building, adding a new parking area with a loading area at the north. The program that we saw with the senior center and the community center, and then returning some of the area to native grasses and meadow plantings. And for that, we have a construction cost of $10.9 million and a total project cost at about $14.3 million. And the last option is the rec center option. And again, this is hazmat remediation. The demo of this is significant because we are taking about 45% of the building away. And then the new scope is the parking area, the new pickleball courts, along with the new basketball court at the exterior, the enlarged indoor basketball court, and then the planting of native grasses and meadow flowers. And so for this option, it's an $8.5 million construction cost and a total project cost of $11.1 million. So these are the 3 options that we were asked to look at, and these are the costs that we came in with. And at this point, I think we're going to turn it over to questions, and I am going to stop sharing. And for questions, if you can raise your hand in the Zoom interface, that would be great.
And Paul, I'm going to let you identify people with their hands raised and call on them, hopefully in order.
Are there any questions about the presentation?
Well, I don't see an opportunity with it. I don't see a hand raised button on your Zoom link.
Yeah.
You're muted, Paul.
Nor does chat seem to be enabled.
Actually, there is nothing to allow any kind of input.
Sorry. The hand raise, if you look at the bottom of the screen, there's a icon that looks like a heart. You can raise your hand.
Got it. Thank you.
So I see Patty Daly's hand raised.
Thank you. I was just wondering when we all might see the actual written report that is the basis of this PowerPoint and how that's going to be shared.
What?
Yeah, we will put the information that we had in tonight's presentation. It will be in the form of a report. We'll include our drawings that we showed you. We'll include our engineers' narratives that contributed to the cost estimate. And we will include our findings on the conditions of the building as well. Everything that fed into this cost estimate, we will include in a report. I see Patty McCormick.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
My question was, initially when this was proposed, they were talking about putting 3 houses there. And this was before they took it over. And the big concern was that there was a well from the water department right next to it. And I guess they felt that the 3 houses would be a big risk in terms of contaminating the water. I want to know if any risk runs from these buildings, which would seem to be more high use than 3 homes would have been, that they foresee any problem with the water next door.
Next door?
Yeah, the water, that area of the school, they were worried that the water would be polluted somehow. And I'm thinking if it's going to be such a high use building, are they taking any special precautions to prevent anything leaching into that well that's right next to the building? That's the question.
Well, with any of these development scenarios, that would have to be taken into consideration, or always all the site work involved that we had priced includes protecting surrounding areas and making sure that all the site precautions are taken so that that doesn't happen. That was thought about in our engineers' narratives that fed into our cost estimate.
Thank you.
I see Rick.
Rick Statterman?
Yes.
Yeah, my question is, if we look at any of these options that have ongoing, senior centers, community centers, or whatever we call it, has there been any consideration, not by Icon, but any consideration on how those future functions are funded? How are they funded if we approve a senior center and a community center? Thank you.
I'll jump in on that. This is Mark Lynch. That is a great question, but is beyond what we've requested from Icon. So this presentation does not include anything regarding future expenses, salaries, heating, cooling, landscaping, etc.
Mark, this is Rick. Then at what point are those addressed?
So that's a great question too. I think that is, well, just to be clear, the Prudential Committee is not in favor of proceeding with a rehabilitation option. So, we're not. Those future costs are one of the reasons why we don't want to proceed, because there is no answer as to how any of these options get funded, let alone any kind of ongoing costs associated with rehabilitation. I think that's the best way I can put it.
Okay, thank you, Mark. And I assume this will come up when we all address it at the great gathering, right?
It will at the annual district meeting.
Thank you very much.
Jean, I see your hand up.
Yep, thank you. I may be behind on this, but just so I to help wrap my head around the various options, can I just ask a question about when we talk about a community center, how many young children and teens are there in Cotuit? Do we know, or?
Not many.
The census data is pretty old, but the short answer is no, we do not have those statistics.
Okay. I know there's Barnstable statistics, but I've never seen anything for just Cotuit.
Yeah, I've seen some, but they're really old, and they're not broken up too well by age groups.
Okay, thank you.
But the U.S. Census is a great resource, by the way, and they do break it down into pretty small, I think, into zip code area data, but that's, the best you're going to get.
Okay, thank you, Mark.
Any other questions or comments?
I see Ray has his hand up.
Just to address, a community center is not just for kids, it's for everybody. That's one thing. The second thing is I'm curious about the derivation of some of these the costs, the non-demolition costs. And I will be interested to see when the report comes out how the methodology at which they were arrived, because that's a lot of money, and quite frankly, I was quite surprised about that. The most important thing is that I think before we run towards demolition, we need to consider carefully this asset that we have, and consider that once it's gone, it's gone. So you can walk around the trees and the posies, but there will be no place to gather. There will be no central gathering place, and it's important that we do that before we just blow it up. Thank you.
Jim, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. I think the architects did a good job, first off. And then the way I view these three scenarios is they're kind of put together as general scenarios. And this may be addressed more to Mark, will we, the public, then have more input on the scenario that's selected, and therefore the details of the scenarios isn't quite as important as the scenario itself? Is that the right way to interpret this?
So the short answer is, all of these decisions are made by a vote of the public at the annual meeting. And so the question of whether any individual voter has enough information to let them make the decision is, of course, up to any additional voter. Last year we had a special district meeting, and a large majority thought that they did have the information they needed to vote to demolish the building, but others wanted more data. So these are more data points. At some point in the annual district meeting, if people feel like they have enough information to vote yes on demolition, they'll vote yes. And if they feel like they need more information, presumably they vote no. That's kind of the best way I can put it, I think. Does that answer your question?
It wasn't entirely. Does that mean when we vote, I'm actually not voting yet, but that you'd vote on whether it's a 6 parking lot versus a 12 parking lot? That level of detail?
No. It would be more based on, this is going to be this. Well, let's put it this way. We started this at the special district meeting, and we undertook this study on the basis of representations that not one penny of taxpayer funds would be expended, quote unquote. Presumably at the annual district meeting, those interested in rehabilitating it will have some update on efforts to fund the project because that was their stated intention. If there has been no progress in that regard, I suspect that we will be asked to fund one of these scenarios. No. So that information is still to come, and presumably that will occur at the annual district meeting.
Fran, I think I see your hand up.
Thank you. I just wanted to point out that when Marston's Mills finally demolished the school on Route 28, that's basically the same structure that we have. That was 3 years ago, give or take. It was under $100,000. It was about $900,000. Now this time's gone by, and now it's obviously increased. And the longer that we wait to make a decision about what we're going to do, ka-ching, 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 the costs going up. And we were told at the start of this process of people who were interested in making the building a community center that they would supply the money. They would get grants, they would run it, they'd supply the money, and it would not fall on the people in the district to support financially a community center at the school. Thank you.
Patty Daly.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to mention that there will be a citizen petition article on the warrant at the annual district meeting to pause any decision on the ultimate disposition of the school for 4 months from tonight. So I think all I am trying to accomplish is to create a space for us to have a discussion. We haven't even seen like the final report from this $120,000 study. So I'd like for all of us to have an opportunity to read it, consider it, discuss it amongst ourselves, and then have a discussion and a vote sometime beyond the end of May, which is right around the corner. The study's just coming out right now. I think we need a couple few months to consider it as a community. Thank you.
Yeah.
Joanne?
Thank you very much for the study and this presentation. I think it's a reality check for what we're talking, what has been discussed. These numbers are pretty high in terms of trying to do anything other than bring it back to its natural state. So I can't even imagine if the group that was very interested in doing a community center hasn't figured out that they need to raise this many millions of dollars. They don't have a plan yet. 4 months is not going to bring it along. So I'm hoping that at the meeting, the annual meeting, there is at least some discussion of how close anybody is to coming up with this kind of money, rather than postponing it for 4 months. And I agree with Fran, costs just keep going up. So I'm hoping we can get a decision and a vote taken that night that just settles this once and for all. But thank you very much for, as I say, the reality check.
Sharon?
Yes, hi. Thank you so much, Mark, for walking us through this for the past 4 years. And thank you, Mark and Paul, for this study and this presentation. I wholeheartedly agree with what Joanne just said. I know my husband and I are going through our own home renovation right now, so I really do understand why these numbers are so expensive. And I'm even wondering, Mark, even with these prices, there are always overages. And I'm wondering if, these costs on especially option 2 or 3, if they would probably even be more expensive at the end of those projects. And thank you very much.
Okay. So I'm not.
Sharon, if I could just chime in a little bit on that. Part of the total project cost that Mark was talking about during our presentation includes contingency money. That's typically for the unexpected, as you might be experiencing in your home renovation. It's money that's budgeted to cover unforeseen conditions, things behind the walls or things in the ground, things we can't see, that the contractor has to deal with on site. So that's why when we say total project costs, we're recommending budgeting for that type of contingency.
Thank you.
I guess I would just add that one thing that this analysis does not take into account is borrowing costs, which are maybe getting kind of volatile. With regard to the 4 additional months, Fran or Seth will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think only the annual meeting had, that is the only opportunity to fund projects. And if the one project or another is not funded at the annual district meeting, the next opportunity is the next annual district meeting. It can't be done at a special district meeting. Is Fran and Seth, do I have that correct?
Why not?
Because I thought that was under the
Can I
bylaw.
answer? Yes, you can. Yes, you can appropriate funds at a special district meeting.
Okay, thanks. I stand corrected.
Stephen?
Thank you very much. And thank you to both Paul and Mark for your presentation. Really appreciated it. The thing that I think is important for those that are still on the Zoom call is, when we talk community center, the ad hoc committee that was set up and stood up, we were really looking at, again, as one gentleman said earlier, the preservation of what we believe is a potentially great community asset. And I was very heartened to hear from the architects that structurally, this building isn't as bad as everybody perceived it to be. There's some parts of it that are going to need renovation, et cetera, et cetera. I get all the infrastructure. I get all the plumbing, the HVAC, the asbestos-filled tile, all of that. So in a very short period of time, getting back to the question of funding, what we had proposed and put a business plan together was to create something along the lines of the Cotuit nonprofit, collaboration center. And we went out and started to talk to a number of different entities that we thought might be interested in coming in and making this its new home. One of those entities was the Cape Cod Baseball League. We thought from a retrofit and a redevelopment aspect that the school really lent itself to a home office of the Cape Cod Baseball League, and more specifically and importantly, perhaps a Hall of Fame. And we went out to the Cultural Center of Cape Cod and other organizations to see whether or not they had both the need and the capacity to be able to come in and become potential tenants in a building. Now, this would require legal structures and the like to be able to set up an organization to not only run the building, but also to collect rent, right? And there are plenty of opportunities and resources throughout the state and others where you can cobble together the money necessary. It just takes work, right? It just takes work. And so for some of us, that work was deemed to be, not a burden. What can the building be? And I think you've told us that the building can be something. The building doesn't necessarily have to be torn down. And so to make it a community service, particularly within the construct that I just talked about, as a nonprofit center that can house potentially a museum, I think is worthwhile. Now, we put everything on hold simply because we were waiting for this report, which we appreciate, absolutely appreciate. Now, what you said to us is it is not a lost cause. It is absolutely not a lost cause. And so we can take all that information and go back and revisit with all those potential tenants to say, is there still an interest to be able to put a business plan together and work with the town to develop some kind of an ownership threshold and structure so that it could operate as a business and become self-reliant. But that takes time. And I understand that, time is money. I get all that. But at the same time, if you would have come back and said, this is hopeless, I wouldn't be talking right now. So I appreciate it. And for the people within the community who are like-minded and see this as a potential resource, we'll have a conversation at the annual meeting and see where we want to go. Thank you.
Fran?
I just want to say, we're not a town, we're a fire district within the town of Barnstable. And we have taxing authority. We provide fire protection and water. And I'm not sure that I or anybody in the village or anybody who lives on Old Oyster would like to see the school used for a rental property. I'm not even sure you can do that because it's not covered under the enabling legislation for the fire district. On top of which, it's not just collect rents. You're going to have to pay, as far as I'm concerned, the entire cost of maintaining and running the building, which because it has the fire district insurance, and their requirement is that you hire an employee that's there whenever anybody is using the building. And, that's going to be an expense also. that needs to be paid and should not be laid at the feet of the people in the fire district. Thank you.
Well, let me just add to that. So that I think we're all citizens of the village, and I think we all have a vested interest in what happens here. And nobody has ever said that this was going to be easy. The only thing easy is to knock the building down, right? If you want to preserve the building as a community resource, it's going to take time, effort, maybe a little bit of legal restructuring, whatever it takes. But it's sometimes, not sometimes, it's almost all the time worth the effort. This is the first stage of it. We've been told that the building is salvageable. And so now we can go out and continue that investigation and do our own due diligence.
Do you know that this has been going on now since 2021? This has been being discussed. Excuse me. This has been being discussed. People have had ideas, and nobody has done anything for the past 4 years. And now all of a sudden, once again, you want to delay the process and just go out and research it and look at it, have more time, discuss it. When it's, everybody's had plenty of time to decide whether or not they want to spend any money to have a community center at the old school. And the longer this gets delayed, the more expensive it's going to be for everybody.
Well, the great thing about democracy is we're all going to be able to get together and vote on what we want to do.
That's right.
Ray?
Thank you. So number one, I heartily endorse what was just said by Stephen. The second thing is, for the record, the Prudential Committee violated the bylaws and refused to spend the money in 2021 on the study. And it was only after they lost the vote and was compelled to spend the money that we even have the study. So let's get that straight, Fran. Let's not play with the truth. The second thing is that what's been presented is a worst case scenario. And what would happen, what's been proposed, is that the fire district would not be the landlord. There would be a nonprofit that would manage the property. So let's get our facts straight, Fran, that people did not drag their feet. The Prudential Committee stonewalled everything. For the record, Fran. And by the way, Fran, you've gotten a lot more time on this than anybody else. So let's observe parliamentary procedure and be quiet, because you have spoken a lot more than anybody else. And the bottom line is you broke the bylaws and refused to spend it. It was only after the vote that you were forced to do that. And you're going to be gone. And this is your last legacy to knock the thing down.
Yeah.
And it's not for the good of the community. It's your own personal ego. And I'm disgusted.
Ray,
point of order, please.
Let's take the temperature down a little bit here.
No, hey, Mark,
let's shed a little more light and a little less heat. I know
we would like that, except that the Prudential Committee always seems to.
Point of order, please. Point of order.
Yeah.
Can I just say one thing? We couldn't go out for a request for proposal on a building that we did not own in 2021.
You know what? I'm on the Town of Barnstable Planning Committee. I actually was instrumental in transferring the property to the village, so I know all about it.
All right, let's give someone else an opportunity to comment.
Rick?
Yeah, I just I thought it was getting a little personal there, and I think we ought to stick to the facts of what Icon presented and what the options are going forward. I'm saddened by the personal attacks just outlined here. Why don't we stick to the facts, look at what the cost will be, and let it go to the town meeting later in May. This is saddening to me, very candidly. Thank you.
Anyone else? Any hands?
Jane? You unmute, Jane?
Hi, sorry about the delay. I just have a question on the two options other than demolition. On those numbers, are we taking into consideration ongoing costs such as salaries, maintenance, utilities, insurance, et cetera, et cetera? Are those numbers presented including those things or just for the establishment of that plan?
So our numbers are 100% based on the building and renovation of the building. There isn't any operational cost carried as part of those numbers.
Well, then thank you for that answer, but my ongoing question then would be to the district, are we capable to continue to provide that kind of a service to the community and the expenses associated with it?
People are going to vote on that at the annual meeting. I know is kind of a loose reference, and Fran or Seth will correct me if I'm wrong. Freedom Hall is around $27,500 a year in just kind of general maintenance, landscaping, heating, cooling, repairs, etc. So it will be a not insignificant figure for anyone who wants to pursue this option.
Yeah, I would think that because it's the center now only has people coming. They don't have people coming and going on a daily basis. A community center would be, you never know when people would be showing up and needing somebody there, etc. And the utilities, of course, would be significantly higher. Has anybody done any kind of analysis on ongoing costs specifically to each plan?
No. And if we pursue that, that is something that should be done. The question is, do we have the appetite for again, we'll see how this is supposed to be funded. We have been promised that not a penny of taxpayer money will go towards any of this. I, for one, am skeptical of that.
May I speak to that?
Sure, Patty.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate it. So we just got this study tonight. This is the first time we've seen any of these cost estimates. So I think you need to give us like more than like tonight to be able to answer questions like that. And the purpose of the citizen petition is to create like 4 months of space to understand the study and present an opportunity for different outcomes. Thank you.
I guess my response to that is last year, our best number was $5.7 million. Has there been any progress in getting funding for that amount?
Mark, with due respect, how can we respond without knowing what the actual costs of renovation are? Literally. You can't shop that to potential investors without actually knowing what the building costs are.
No, I think you can, but
Okay.
Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome. Other hands? Paul, see anybody with a hand raised?
I don't, Mark.
If that's the case, going once, going twice, if there are no other questions, comments, or concerns, I'll move or I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 So it is 7:13 p.m. And the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for attending and for your questions.
No, it's not. Well, he's wrong. He can't be.
All right, you can end the meeting, Paul.
Okay.
Take care.